Which set of Championship fans has got the best value for money this season? So what I've gone ahead and done for today's video is I've taken each Championship club and their cheapest adult season ticket from the start of the season, not including renewal prices. I've then stacked that against how many goals each of those clubs scored this season to work out how much each Championship fan paid per goal. All will make sense as the video goes on. I want to hear from you guys if you feel like you're getting decent value or not compared to how much you're paying for your tickets. If you're not subscribed already as well, make sure to go ahead and do so. Around 70% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so hit that button if you've not already. But without any further ado, let's jump in. So it probably won't come as a massive surprise to learn that Luton Town got the worst value for money in terms of how much they were paying compared to how many goals they saw their team score. £470 was the cheapest adult season ticket at Kenilworth Road at the start of the season. They only scored 25 home goals all season, which equates to £18.80 per goal, which is by far the most expensive of any Championship side. Slightly better off than that in 23rd place at Sheffield Wednesday. It's been well documented over these last few years just how much Sheffield Wednesday fans are actually paying for their season tickets. 560 quid you were paying before the start of the season. Wednesday didn't have a particularly great record at Hillsborough either, only scored 30 goals, which is equal to £18.67 per goal scored. In 22nd place, we've got the Middlesbrough fans. They were paying £574 for an adult season ticket, which is more than any other Championship fan base is paying. Despite paying the most expensive prices, they didn't really get value on the pitch this season, ended up finishing 10th and only scored 31 goals at home, which is equal to £18.52 per goal. So Borough fans probably have a decent right to feel quite ripped off this season. In 21st place, we've got the Millwall fans. They were paying competitive prices for season tickets at £441, but what's not helped them in this is the fact that they just didn't score a lot of goals at the Den this season, only 27 in total, which is equivalent to £16.33 per goal. Millwall, despite pushing for the top six, weren't prolific goal scorers home or away. They were one of the lowest scoring sides in the league this season, so their fans have been paying quite a bit per goal. In 20th place, we've got the Derby County fans. They were paying £399 for their adult season tickets. They were one of the lowest scoring clubs at home this season, only hitting the back of the net 25 times, and so it won't come as a massive surprise that they are fairly low down on this list. For Derby fans, they were paying £15.96 per goal this season. And it may come as a surprise to you to see just how low down this list Sheffield United actually are, but because they had some of the most expensive season tickets in the Championship, and also factoring in that they weren't massive scorers at Bramall Lane either, despite having one of the best home records in the Championship this season, the vast majority of Sheffield United games this season have been quite low scoring and low marginal. So in total, they only scored 33 goals at Bramall Lane, which is the equivalent to £15.55 per goal. Ranked 18th on this list, we've got the Watford fans. They were paying relatively competitive prices, only £402 for an adult season ticket at Vicarage Road, but the fact they only scored 27 goals at home all season meant that that was the equivalent of £14.80 per goal, which does rank them fairly low down on this list, especially when we consider how much some of the teams were paying right at the top of this list. 17th on this list, we've got the Hull City fans. I think every Hull fan will just be glad that this season is over and done with. Survived on the final day by the skin of their teeth. They were paying really competitive prices for season tickets, only £342, but they scored the joint fewest amount of home goals this season, only 24 in total, which is the equivalent to £14.25 per goal. So despite having some of the cheapest tickets in the league, Hull fans will still feel a little bit mugged off by how poor they were at home all season. 16th on this list, we've got the Pompey fans. Now, Portsmouth really made Fratton Park a fortress all season. It was a large factor in why they survived in the end. Vast majority of their points did come in home matches. In the end, they scored 33 goals, but just because of the pricing of those tickets, it meant that Pompey fans were paying £13.79 per goal, which is on the more expensive side compared to some of these other clubs. 15th on this list, we've got the Sunderland Sunderland fans, for an adult season ticket at the Stadium of Light, you were paying a minimum of £440 if you were a new customer at the start of the season. Sunderland fans saw their side scored 32 goals at home during the regular season, which is the equivalent of £13.75 per goal. Coming in 14th on this list, we've got the Cardiff fans, who are probably a bit higher up on this list than a lot of people expected them to be, but the fact they had the third cheapest season tickets in the Championship does help them out in this regard. Cardiff fans were paying only £309 at the start of the season, but still probably won't feel like they got great value for money. They finished rock bottom of the Championship. They were the joint lowest scoring side at home in the divisional season as well, only hitting the back of the net 24 times. So despite their really cheap season tickets, Cardiff fans were still paying £12.88 per goal that they saw their team score. Ranked 13th on this list, we've got the Blackburn Rovers fans. For a new customer at Ewood Park at the start of the season, you were paying a minimum of £429. Now, Blackburn did score 34 goals at home, which is a decent return compared to a lot of other clubs. Factoring in how much those tickets cost, that was an average of £12.62 per goal that Blackburn fans were paying. Slap bang in the middle of this table, we've got the West Brom fans. They were paying £399 for a season ticket at the Hawthorns. Come match day 46, they saw their side score 33 goals at home in total. That tally, by the way, really helped out by the fact they put 5 goals past Luton on the final day, so that would have lifted them up these rankings quite a bit. In total, West Brom fans paid £12.09 per goal, although if you missed that Luton game on the final day of the season, you would have got substantially less value for money there. Into the top half of the table we go. 11th on this ranking are Stoke City. Their season tickets were really competitively priced at the start of the season at £344 for a new customer. In total, Stoke scored 29 goals at home. That's the equivalent of £11.86 per goal. Not much of a season to write home about for Stoke City, but compared to their prices and how many goals they scored, still got relatively decent value for money. 10th place, we've got my side, Preston North End. It's a similar story with sort of Preston Stoke, really. Preston, their season tickets really competitively priced. I believe we had the second cheapest adult season tickets at the start of the season. Didn't score a plethora of goals at home, only 26, but factoring in how cheap those tickets actually were, that's the equivalent of £11.31 per goal. Hopefully going into next season, we'll have a little bit more goal-mouth action at Deepdale because, yeah, there were quite a few drab affairs at home this season, I think it's fair to say. 9th on this list, we've got the Swansea City fans. They were paying £359 per season ticket at the start of the season. Relatively decent return in terms of the number of goals they scored at home, 33 in total. That's the equivalent of £10.88 per goal. So we're starting to get into the region now where we're getting into decent value for money. As soon as you're around that £10 per goal mark, I think you're doing all right, really. 8th on this list, we've got Bristol City. Their fans were paying £390 per season ticket at the start of the campaign. A really good return, actually, in terms of goals scored at Ashton Gate. 36 in total. That's the equivalent of £10.83 per goal. Most of Bristol City's points this season did come in home matches, so if you were a season ticket holder at Ashton Gate, I think you got pretty decent value for money this season. 7th on this list, we've got the Oxford United fans. I'm sure they've had a really good time in the Championship this season, actually, especially with most people tipping them for relegation before a ball had been kicked. But their season tickets were really competitively priced before a ball had been kicked, just £329. They scored 31 goals at home in total, which is the equivalent of £10.61 per goal. So all things considered, yeah, Oxford fans I think will definitely take that. This is the amazing part though, because Norwich City are all the way up in 6th on this list, despite having the third most expensive adult season tickets in the Championship. Norwich fans still got pretty decent value for money, certainly in terms of the goalmouth action that they saw at Carrow Road this season. Their fans were paying a minimum of £545.50 per adult season ticket, but the fact they scored 52 goals at Carrow Road this season makes that big investment a little bit easier to stomach, really. Norwich fans were paying £10.49 per goal, which in the grand scheme of things is actually really decent value for money. Obviously not a great season for Norwich in the end in terms of league placement, inconsistency, especially on the road, but surely from a goal scoring perspective at home, Norwich fans still got decent value for money there. Fifth on this list, we've got the Plymouth Argyle fans. Despite having to endure a relegation season, their fans still saw plenty of goals being scored at home park, and Plymouth pulled off quite a few big results at home actually. It was their away form that really let them down this season, but their fans were paying a minimum of £405 for a season ticket. They scored 40 goals at home in total, which is the equivalent of £10.13, but it's quite mad really that Plymouth have been relegated when you're scoring that many goals at home, especially compared to some of the other clubs that are down there on this table. Just a shame that their away form let them down in the end. Coming in fourth on this list, we've got the Burnley fans in at Turf Moor. Say what you like about Scott Parker's football, Burnley fans still got good value for money at home this season. Their fans were paying £352 for an adult season ticket. They scored 35 goals at Turf Moor, and that was an equivalent of £10.05 per goal. Also, you got to factor in that Burnley fans never saw their side lose at home this season in the league, which is an absolutely crazy statistic. Obviously, quite a few goalless draws were thrown in there, certainly in the first half of the season, but pound for pound, Burnley fans have still got to be buzzing with that, haven't they? Coming in third on this list, we've got the Coventry fans. They were paying £350 for an adult season ticket. They scored 40 home goals in total, which is the equivalent of just £8.75 per goal. So really decent value for money. There's quite a jump actually between those sides that are sort of outside the top three and those that are in the top three. Coventry have done a lot of work in recent years in trying to get more fans on side. The average attendances have absolutely skyrocketed at Coventry in recent years, and they've played some pretty attractive football along the way. Now, second on this list, we've got QPR, but I have put an asterisk next to that season ticket price because we need to lay out a little bit of context before we dive into the full picture at QPR. But technically speaking, you could buy an adult season ticket at Loftus Road for £252 at the start of the season. And if you did purchase one of those tickets, you paid just £8.13 per goal. However, it is important to stress that the tickets that are available for £252, you're sat in a part of the stadium where you do get a restricted view, and if you want to sit anywhere else in the stadium, you're paying a minimum of £500 for an adult season ticket. So let's say, for example, you're a QPR fan who sat in the restricted viewing zone of the stadium. You're getting really good value for money, although you can't actually see all of the pitch. If you're sat anywhere else in the stadium and you're paying around £500 for a season ticket, then that works out at about £16 per goal, which would have QPR all the way down at about 20th on this list. So there's a big discrepancy there at QPR between cost of tickets and value for money, so that has to be stressed. But you might have guessed it, coming out on top by quite some distance actually, it is the Leeds United fans in at Ellen Road. Now there is quite a big variance with Leeds United fans and how much they'll be paying for their season tickets. The cheapest that I could find at the start of the season was at £434, but I'm sure Leeds fans in other parts of the stadium and things like that would have been paying a bit more than that. But the fact that Leeds scored way more goals at home than any other club means that regardless of what you paid really, Leeds fans still got really decent value for money. If you did get a ticket for that £434 price range, you were paying just £7.11 per goal, which when you compare it to some of those sides, especially around the bottom five, Leeds fans have got unbelievable value for money this season in the Championship. But guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, get all your thoughts in the comments down below. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.